Hello everyone and welcome to the Football Analyst. So today we're going to be looking at the Europa League Final between Sevilla and AS Roma. So that finished in a 1-1 draw after normal time and also extra time, and then Sevilla won on penalties in what was a really tense game. There weren't a lot of chances created in the game, typical Jose Mourinho, really sat deep once he went 1-0 up. And, Sevilla couldn't really generate much opportunities, although they did get a goal back through an own goal. As we can see, they dominated most of the possession, in this case Sevilla. 66.8% of the possession went their way. Also the shots, 19-11. Although they had very low shots on target. They only had 3 on target. As we can also see, they had good success going down the right. So as we can see for Sevilla, they've got 42% down the right side. That was typically Jesus Navas's wing, along with a Campos. They had a lot better success attacking that flank compared to the other side. We can also see that most of the play was in the middle for third, which is typical, but 43% is almost half. So it was played in there purely because Mourinho just didn't allow the ball to be transitioned really at all past the mid-block. He sat his team in really a 5-3-2 and just totally closed that down. And then as we can see again, most of the average player positions are in either the defensive half or the mid-third. As we can see, Sevilla's centre-backs are a little bit higher, just due to the fact that they had more of the ball and a bit more territory, but most of the game was played in the middle third, so that's what we'll be looking at closely. We can also see that in the heat maps, Sevilla have a lot more touches. They've got about 340 more touches, and also have a lot of, dark red spots around those flanks where they had good success and were really forced into playing out wide by Roma's mid-block. So we'll start with the starting formations. So as we can see, Sevilla set up in a 4-2-3-1 and played down the wings, often into Roma numbers. So this is what Roma wanted them to do, play down the wings, and they could move their shape across and close any play down. But of course, Jose set Roma up in a 5-2-3. Once they lost possession, Roma often went to a 5-3-2 on the defensive side of the ball, but generally they played with, the 2 wingers and a forward when in possession. Unfortunately, they didn't have a lot of possession, so I just wanted to look at the second half when Sevilla were able to get control of the game and get back into the game after going 1-0 down after half-time. They made key substitutes in bringing Erik Lamela on and also Suso, and that really helped change the game in their favour. So first, we'll have a look at Sevilla in possession. So as we can see, Sevilla set up in a 2-5-3, so they would push their wing backs in Alex Telles and Jesus Navas up high and wide to join the midfield line. Oftentimes Suso would drop into midfield also because Roma had lots of numbers there. Roma would often sit in a 5-3-2, and as substitutes came on, they would sit in a 5-4-1. So once Dybala came off for Wijnaldum, I think, they moved back into a 5-4-1 and just had Belotti, who came on for Abraham, up forward, just protecting those centre-backs. This meant that they could easily just clog midfield, they could just clog central areas and shift their play across as the ball moved. They could just come in here and really dominate numbers. In this instance, we can see Suso has dropped between the 2 CDMs, so we've got Fernando here and Ivan Rakitic. He receives the ball from the centre-backs, and we can see Abraham's up high. I think that's Pellegrini who's joined him up high on the left, but he's marking Fernando. So in this case, they're in a 5-4-1 because Wijnaldum's on the pitch. So in this instance, Suso's felt he's had to come forward to receive, and he gets the ball here. Because he comes in short, Roma's midfielders don't want to go that high, so they sit back. And this means that whatever player was in there is dragged into Suso, and it meant that he could free up Rakitic or Fernando to receive. In this case, Fernando was marked by Pellegrini, which meant that Rakitic was free. And this is really key because it would pull players out of position in terms of Roma players out of position. So Cristantes had to come and press Rakitic, which has meant that Telles has been able to move up high and wide. As we can see, he receives the ball, and this has meant that Roma's right wing back has had to come up to mark him, and also means that the right-sided centre back, in this case I think it was Mancini's, had to come across to mark Lamela. And we can see the space this is created by dragging Cristante out of position. It's meant that, there's a lot of space to attack, and that's what Telles tries to do here. He lays it off to the Lamela and just instantly goes for this space. We can see the gap between the centre backs now. And unfortunately, he just gets dragged down by the right back. And if he hadn't of, Lamela could just make an easy pass and he'd be through on goal. So it's a very clever professional foul, but these are sort of the opportunities they were able to create out wide. They weren't able to go through the middle, but these opportunities were few and far between. Here's just another example of Suso again coming short into the ball. In this instance, the ball's wide, so he's come across wide and dragged Mancini up, who's had to mark him because they want to keep that midfield shape. They don't want to pull too many midfielders over and leave too much space on this other flank. So Mancini's come up. It's meant that the back line has shifted across to cover both the right back and the right centre back, which meant that Navas is wide open to receive. So they recycle the ball quickly, goes back to Bono, who recycles it out wide, gets to Navas, and he's able to drive forward into space with a Campos there as well. So he chips it over to a Campos, and he's able to get through. A little bit of a poor touch, and Roma are able to negate any threat. This is late in the game too, so players are a bit fatigued as well, keep in mind, but we can see sort of what Sevilla had to do just to bypass Roma's defensive shape. Constantly switching the ball, trying to get it out to the wide areas into space, and playing balls like this over the top and through just to try and get into the box, otherwise they'd be caught right out in the touchline. But oftentimes this meant that because of the Roma numbers, they were just able to intercept it, so it was very difficult for Sevilla to get good opportunities. On the flip side, so we're looking at Roma's defensive shape. As we can see, it's a 5-3-2 because Dybala's still on the pitch, and so is Abraham. So of course, once the substitutes came on, it sort of reverted back to a 5-4-1. But with the 5-3-2, we can see how narrow it is. So this is from a free kick, so Rakitic has come deep, he lays it off to the centre back, but they're already set up in a very narrow shape. So they're allowing balls out to Telles and Navas, and they will just shift their shape across and just clog any space available to play into feet in sort of forward areas. So the ball does get moved out to Navas, and we can see that ideally Roma wanted their wing back to attack the opposite fullback, and then they would shift their numbers across. This meant that they could keep their three midfielders in central areas, which meant that they could help out the back line rather than being stretched and leaving space in behind and attacking midfield. We've got another instance here of where the ball is switched out to Navas again, and Spinazzola's really high already to try and negate any forward ball movement. He's forced to play down the line, which happened a lot. They're often playing along the touchline, really close to the touchline. So he plays to a Campos. Wijnaldum's on the pitch at this stage, so they're in a 4-5-1, which has meant that he's able to push across and cover and still keep three Roma midfielders in central areas. So it made it more difficult once they went to that 5-4-1 because they were able to just move midfielders across to support and keep their centre-backs in position. Because as we can see, Ibanez is still here on a Campos, and it's meant that Wijnaldum's able to go and double team Suso on the touchline here, and they're able to retrieve the ball. So it's a very effective defensive shape from Roma. Sevilla really didn't have any luck going through the middle and had very poor attacking chances going out wide. Reiterate this further. This is Roma's goal in the first half. So as we can see, they're playing pretty much the same shape. It's sort of a 5-4-1, 5-3-2 look about it, but they're doing it really high. They're pressing a bit higher, and it's forced Navas to just dump the ball long because they've really covered off any short options forward down the line, and it's too risky to try and play around. So he dumps the ball long. The header's won by Ibanez. He sort of heads it into midfield, and Roma are able to get that loose ball. They get fouled, and because of the disorientation in the Sevilla shape, a quick free kick opens up a lane for Dybala to go in and score. So their goal really came about because of their defensive shape, and in this case a little bit of a press, which just goes to show you how difficult it really was for Sevilla to move the ball in any area of the pitch. We'll take a look at Roma in their deep block and Sevilla in a forward third area, and what they're able to do in order to get their goal, and how Roma were able to push this game to penalties. So as we can see, Roma are pretty much in a 5-3-2, 5-3-1-1 formation. Sometimes whoever the attacking mid was would come back. You know, when Wijnaldum came on, it became a 5-4-1, sorry. And it was really difficult for Sevilla to get any looks. Oftentimes they were caught crossing the ball into numbers, particularly with their three defensive midfielders coming really deep to support the centre-backs. But it also meant that they were able to claim any second balls and loose balls and just maintain a threat in forward areas, which really starved Roma of any possession or counter-attacking opportunities. So as we can see, here's the Roma shape. So we've got a 5-3-2, a 5-3-1-1. Dybala's still on the pitch because it's early in the second half, and we can see that Telles is about to cross the ball, and we can just see the numbers that they've got in terms of Roma numbers against just 2 box targets for Sevilla. So he crosses it in, and Ocampos has got 2 players to contend with already. There's 3 players in the direct vicinity compared to 1 Sevilla player, which meant that they could probably get any loose ball that would spill from this attempt and then still maintain shape even if Fernando was able to receive the ball from a rebound. Here we can see Sevilla in a familiar spot for their goal. So they're in a wide area. The only thing that's different is the numbers they have in the box. So we can see that Lamela's come right across and Suso's come up as well. So they've got about 3 numbers here in the box and a 1v1 on the wing. So they've been able to transition the ball quickly and bypass the mid-block of Roma. And it's meant that Roma's midfielders aren't really in a position to help defend, which has left a 3v4. So I've got the 4 defenders here and the 3 Sevilla forwards because Spinazzola's had to go out wide. So it's really a 3v4. But you can discount the other fullback because the cross comes in short. So they're able to actually get a 2v2. And it's a great cross because it lands sort of between the centre-backs. And we can see that none of the midfielders, the Roma midfielders, have really been able to come back and support this. So they've got a 1v1, 2 1v1s to contend with in terms of the Roma centre-backs. And that leads to the mistake from Mancini. Comes off his leg, goes in for a goal, and Sevilla get that goal back and push it all the way to penalties. So there wasn't a heap to look at in this game. A lot of it was just Sevilla switching the play. They had a few chances here or there, although their expected goals was very low considering the possession they had. Roma's expected goals were a little higher because of course they scored and were able to create a few chances from really close range. However, they gave up so much possession and had very few shots, very few on target, and the game was really Jose's mid and deep block and then Sevilla's ability to work through that. In the end, Sevilla, they're the kings of the Europa League. They win on penalties and, they get their 7th Europa League title. So congratulations to them. If you noticed anything about the game that I didn't cover or you just want to share your thoughts, chuck that down in the comments. If you've liked the analysis and want to see more, make sure to like the video and subscribe. And as always, may your team be forever winning.